Over the years, there have been discussions and disputes over the way popular movie studios have been treating legacy characters. Some side with the studios and the sentiment that says the race, gender, and sexual orientation of a character doesn't matter so long as the soul of the character remains. Others claim changing the canon facts, such as the aforementioned, does in fact affect the soul of the character. Whichever side of the fence you stand, we can all agree that there is such a thing as the soul of a character. The set of traits possessed by a fictional character that resonates with fans, so much so that they are willing to let go of their hard-earned money just to support the creators. James Bond, Wolverine, Luke Skywalker. The moment you hear these names, you immediately get an idea of who they are, what they look like, and what they stand for. The outrage and fan backlash when characters are gender swapped or race swapped is well documented. But what happens when an actor or character model physically embodies a role but all else feels off? Do fans sharpen their pitchforks and light their torches? Or does it blossom into a classic love story with a striking resemblance to Disney's The Princess and the Frog? Best believe we are about to find out. Our first case study has to be Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, a movie that initially came out to mixed reviews but now seems to have universal praise. How? I do not know, but if I was to take an educated guess, I would say it was compound interest gotten from an appreciation in Cavill's fandom over the years, further boosted by the mental corrosion caused by Joss Whedon's Justice League. But Big Cheese, how could you say such a thing? Because Man of Steel is a sadist wet dream of what Superman is. Look, I have seen Man of Steel. I wanted to like Man of Steel. The issue is, the most memorable part of that movie for me is the scene where Cavill appears from the back of a house, shirtless. I borrow no letters from the LGBTQ community when I say this, and we can all agree that there is nothing more masculine than a bearded Cavill stealing clothes with a tattered pair of trousers. But then again, why is he stealing clothes? This is the part where Jabroni raises his hands all excited and says some bullshit along the lines of, but he was trying to protect his secret identity. That's not what I'm asking. You see.
Do you see? Do you see? Yes, I see!
As a movie director, you have about 2 hours to tell a story about who a character is and what he is to become, and you decide to start a Superman story like this and end it like this. I know we all hate to say it, but Henry Cavill's iteration of Superman sucked. Superman is a very hopeful character, dropped at the center of a hopeless world. He brings light to this new world in which he resides, raised as Clark Kent from a small town named literally to drive home the point of his humble upbringing, strong moral compass, and a deep respect for humanity. When you combine that with his Kryptonian heritage, you get a character that is one of the most powerful beings in the universe, but he still feels harmless. Nothing about Cavill's version feels harmless. Henry's Superman carries an intensity that makes him appear edgy and dangerous. Maybe it's just the color grading, but Cavill's Superman evokes fear. Further driving home this point is his apocalyptic battle with the Rogue General. After watching Invincible and Omni-Man settle their differences in what was the streets of Chicago, I am now legally certified by the United Nations to bring to you the information that the amount of bodies they were scraping off the pavement after such a clash was not two. This portrayal strips away the sense of safety usually associated with Superman and replaces it with a more unpredictable, volatile energy. He feels less like a symbol of hope and more like a powerful outsider trying to earn trust. He appears more alien than human, more God than guardian. Man of Steel is what happens when you give an anarchist a big movie budget. As is the case with all Snyder movies, you get the big movie spectacles, stunning visuals, and stylish cinematography, but often at the expense of any real emotional connection with the characters. All the love Cavill has amassed over the years for his role as Superman has absolutely nothing to do with his performance as Superman. And it's sad once you get to know just how big of a nerd and into this stuff he really was. He was ready to do more. If only he was handed better material and a director half as good as Zack Snyder thinks he is. Does this remind you of anyone? Someone also passionate about a project and has been a lifelong fan of the source material. A now beloved actor paired with a director who is living proof that all you need to make it in Hollywood is your last name. Yes, our second victim, example, is Rhys Parker, played by Andrew Garfield. The difference between Garfield's Spiderman and Henry Cavill's Superman is Garfield was given slightly better material to work with. Throughout the movie, you are treated to little sparks of brilliance, just a peep into what this guy could be, if only the script will allow it. The best instance of this has to be his introduction in the first Tazam. He has a pretty standard interaction with another student about taking pictures of her boyfriend's car, a scene written to show just where Peter stood socially. But it's his mannerisms that take center stage here. Between this interaction and the interaction with Gwen later on in the sequence, you just knew he understood the assignment. Unfortunately, that's all you get. The movie loses all the Peter aura Garfield manages to farm the longer it goes on. And by the end, you are left with an almost unrecognizable Peter staring down New York City. And much like Cavill, it's not his fault. The irony of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is that it's the best part of the movie that ruins his performance as Peter. And that's when the movie shifts gears and focuses on his relationship with Gwen, his love interest that the movie wants us to believe is a nerd, but all else proves otherwise. With every interaction with Gwen, his nervous demeanor turns to boyish charm in our eyes, and you quickly start to see through the bullshit. You start to see this Peter as just introverted rather than socially awkward and out of place, like he could charm his way through any setting if he really wanted to. Further adding to this drift and honestly overcomplication is the backstory about his parents being scientists and originators of the genetically enhanced spiders, which makes it feel like he was chosen rather than just a regular kid who got bit by chance. On top of that, the movie's dark undertones, both visually and thematically, combined with a highly underdeveloped villain, forces audiences to gravitate to the only source of light in this whole movie, Peter's love life. All this starts to make sense when you realize the director of this movie, Mark Webb, was popular for his work in the romance genre. The guy stuck with his romantic sensibilities and produced one of the most chemically reactive couples in cinema history. The problem is, that connection ends up hijacking the narrative in ways that are more damaging than helpful, and thus, Rhys Parker was born. Both Cavill and Garfield were definitely screwed out of their dream roles by poor decisions made by studio executives inspired by God knows what, and we fans in return were robbed of two great performances by two great actors who were more than willing to give their all to the job. My conclusion, however, is something I realized while writing this script, and it's that neither side really cares about the soul of a character, at least not as much as they claim. Both actors have inspired fan movements calling for their return to roles that have seen multiple predecessors and successors, and if we are being honest, they were the worst of them.